What are the challenges with green energy? Does the industry have an image problem? What role does hydrogen play in a cleaner tomorrow? Welcome to The Challenge with Green Energy, the podcast tackling the tough questions with the green energy revolution. I'm your host, Lizzie Simon, and in each episode, we will be speaking to experts, leaders, and key voices in the industry to uncover the challenges, breakthroughs, and image issues, and the untold stories that are powering a cleaner, brighter tomorrow. So, what is the challenge with green energy? Let's find out. For the final episode of season 1 for the challenge with green energy, we're going to be speaking to none other than Andy Lord, who is the CEO of Hydrogen Safe, and obviously, you know, the person that's made all of this possible. So, as a bit of an introduction, he began his career in recruitment and eventually rose to CEO of his business. And through that experience, he discovered his strength in building training businesses driven from identifying the gap within that skills market. And it's this which has eventually led him to the hydrogen industry and ultimately to build Hydrogen Safe as it is today. So the main mission that Andy has for the business is to create opportunities and an economic uptick for young people and the future workforce, and ultimately to give local people access to training that then leads to higher paying jobs. So Andy, welcome to the Challenge with Green Energy. How do you feel about being our final guest?
Final guest for this season. I think we've got more to come, right? But I'm excited, and you've had a really eclectic set of people joining in, of which has been great to hear, right? Each one has had a different angle or perspective, and I feel like mine might be no different, Lizzie.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be really good to have you on. And I think we can use this episode almost as an opportunity to summarise, you know, everything that has been taken away from all the different guests on the season, but then obviously also to gain your insight on the topics that we've been covering. So obviously, as I alluded to in your introduction, with your kind of career developments, you've kind of gained a knack of spotting a skills gap within industries. So I guess what's led you to becoming the CEO of Hydrogen Safe and where you are now?
Good question. So maybe it's serendipity, right? There was an article that I posted on my LinkedIn. So depending on when this episode goes out, I don't know when that date was, about the recruitment business that I founded and was the CEO of, being rescued from administration. I posted that the other day, right? So I haven't been there for, I don't know, more than 10 years. So I feel like not on my watch, right? But I started in that industry, in tech recruitment. And what became really, really clear was the industry at the time, so the tech industry, had this perfect model of what a good employee would be, which was 2 years experience and a 2-1 minimum degree from a good university in software related skills. That's kind of what everybody wanted. And when you fish in a pool that small, what happens is what made the recruitment industry, when I was in it, kind of boom time, which is there aren't enough people who fit that demographic to cope with all the jobs that are being created. So there's a spiral going upwards where if you're a good developer, you just change job every 18 months or 24 months. You got sometimes 10 or 15,000 pound salary increase, and the recruiters, and I'm not going to knock the industry, charged a fee each time, right? And that fee just kept going up and up and up in line with the salaries, you know, that model of it's related to somebody's salary. And I could just see that is a model that has to break, right? That can't go on forever. And I was also constantly surprised that some of the customers that we work with didn't have, in football terminology, a youth system. Just seemed to make perfect sense to me. Why would you not have your own academy or whatever it might be, whatever we're going to call it, learning at the same time? Because you could give them all that experience and then you've created your own perfect 2 years experienced developer, maybe with a degree and maybe not. So that always used to perplex me. So I was like the anti-recruitment guy running a multinational recruitment business. I was at kind of odds with myself. But there is also a place for brilliant recruitment. So if you fast forward I built a tech training company and cyber training company when they weren't as trendy as they were now. They were trendy in America, and there's a theme there, right? They were abroad, this was happening. In England or the UK, it wasn't. So we built one. It just got sold to a big corporate the other day, so I probably would have made a lot of money if I'd have stayed in that one. But the model was, why don't we just create a hot housing boot camp with brilliant people, not academics, people who work from the industry, teaching the people who are going to go on the courses what it is that they did that they knew made them employable. Which sounds dead obvious, Lizzie, but that's not what schools, colleges or universities do, right? They have a book that they teach from. I mean, it's a bit more elaborate than that, but there's a syllabus that's created. And, I always think that you're missing the bit, which is what does the employer want, not what does the academic want. And no disrespect to my academic friends, because we've got loads, haven't we? So I did software and cyber, and then chose a different path. And then COVID happened. It didn't just happen to me, it happened to everybody. So I'm not kind of saying woe is me. And instantly there's a massive demand for people with COVID testing skills. The model that the labs used was they would take scientists with a 2-1 or a first from a red brick university in a science-related degree to work in COVID testing. Well, think about it. I don't know whether you've ever seen a COVID testing lab. I don't want to belittle it. People working really hard work, right? You open the swab, you've done the swab, you open the swab, you analyse it, you code it into a system, or you send it away for further testing, and you give a result. You don't need to be a scientist to do that. You just don't. You just need to be a hard worker and understand the importance of what you're doing, and kind of like the idea that literally you are saving lives, right? You kind of like it. So we built a COVID testing hothouse training program, and it was fabulous, right? We were placing thousands of people in jobs. I did it with another investor. And we said, well, do you know what? Now we've proven that science doesn't have to be done by scientists. Why don't we enroll people into an apprenticeship where we can embed what we're teaching into it? And so Rachel and I, your colleague, my best friend, applied to be on the list of apprenticeship providers. And we got it because we were kind of providing an emergency service, right? And at that time, the list was closed and you could only get on it if you were doing something like that. So it's fab, right? And a great learning journey. And of course, COVID ended and the business went on to do other things. And I hope they're doing really well. It was my time to leave again. And then I'm looking around and thinking, what's next? What's the next big thing? So I don't know where I started. I can't remember how I started, but I discovered hydrogen. And like we do today, Lizzie, we talk to people about hydrogen. And I'm not even going to mention what people say, right? Because we're trying to eradicate the memory for people of this big balloon, right? But most people didn't know. I didn't know. I'm reading. And what I can see is around the world, the hydrogen industry is growing at a rapid rate. So Australia, the Middle East, China, different aspects of it are growing. And in the UK, nobody was talking about it. And I was talking to a business that kind of use us today, who work in oil and gas, if you like, they work in the pipelines, who said, do you know anything about hydrogen? I was like, wow, this is one of those moments. I do actually. I've spent hours and hours and hours reading. One thing leads to another. We get an investor who said, I want to help you build a hydrogen training company because we can see the demand is going to be massive. So selfishly, they wanted me to help them. It's not selfishly. I mean, it's a brilliant business plan. But actually, when I read about it and you kind of keep reading and exploring, you can see there are going to be so many people needed, either new people coming into an industry or existing people who are going to need some knowledge and skills to be able to work safely, competently and confidently in the hydrogen industry. So I did what I do, Lizzie, which is I kind of write loads of papers out. I do diagrams and post-it notes. And then I said to Rachel, I don't know what you're doing for a living, love, but would you like to come and work with me again? And I'm sure she'd kill me for saying that. And she said, yeah, because it's always great fun. And I don't know anything about this subject. And then a little bit later on, because we've been doing it for about a year now, we're here. And I'm not going to kind of do the end in case that's part of your questioning. And then I managed to find brilliant people like you, Lizzie, to say, what do you know about the industry? You say, I don't know anything, but I know that I need to save the planet. I want to be part of that. And if I could also give people great jobs or an opportunity to earn more or be more skilled or more confident or more comfortable, then it's something that's really important. So that's the answer. I'm hoping to make a few quid along the way. I'll make some for the investors. I kind of very often do. But I'm doing it because the opportunity is literally to be part of history. I genuinely believe this is a history book page that will be there. My name won't be in it, and Hydrogen Safes won't be in it, but the industry changing the way that we kind of use energy, or the energy that we use, it will be a chapter in history, and I'm really motivated by that.
Definitely. And I think, where there is this biggest skills gap, it is going to be here. I just read a report the other week saying that it's now predicting that there's going to be 90,000 skilled workers needing, and it just feels like it's kind of getting more and more and more. So the question I'm going to ask you is, do you think that this is going to be your last endeavour, I guess, when it comes to finding a skills gap and rolling with it and creating a business? Do you think this is your kind of last stop?
I'm 55 now. I might even be 56. I've told people the wrong age for so long that even I don't know how old I am. But I feel, well, it's true, right? I feel more energized than I ever have. I've just been to the gym. I was just looking how my head looks. So I've been to the gym. I feel more energized and more enthused than I think I ever have. And I know that's corny, right? And I get it probably does sound corny, but actually I'm more energized because the journey that we've been on, you've been in all my meetings, right? It's sometimes like banging your hand on the table or your head on the table saying, come on. And then in the last few months, I think anyone that's following the industry will see more final investment decisions have been taken, more production has been approved, more projects are coming on stream. But I think there's 10 years worth of work. So the long answer to your question is, I hope so, Lizzie. I hope it is. Not because I'm tired, just because this industry is really just getting going in the UK. It's it's old technology. Hydrogen is old technology, but the application of it is brand new. But there is so much to do.
I think for sure we're starting to see movement within the UK, but there are still a lot of challenges. There are still a lot of obstacles. And I think, we've had such a variety of guests over this season. And when we've kind of got to the point of discussing, okay, well, what do you think the biggest challenge is? It's almost like people are sitting in two camps. The first camp is, I guess, the more practical challenges of hydrogen. So, you have your issues with infrastructure, you have your issues with heating or leakage or embrittlement and all of that. And then in the second camp, you have the, I guess, more systemic challenges of the UK. So this is your issues with obviously political uncertainty, with lack of funding, lack of investment, lack of policy. And it almost feels like which is the bigger one? And possibly, if we had more funding, this could then lead on to then meaning more innovation and therefore more solutions to those practical challenges. So I'm really interested to kind of get your insight on where you think the problem is.
How long have you got?
5 minutes.
In 5 minutes, because there's all of those things. And first of all, listen to you. Look at you using words like embrittlement and stuff like that. How brilliant is that, right? The learning journey.
There we go.
Yeah, the learning.
I do listen.
Yeah, the learning journey that we've all been on. Having brilliant qualified science teachers working with us, doing science lessons. We don't tell people that, do we? That we've had a science lesson every week, haven't we?
Every Friday.
Yeah, and talking to industry is one thing. Having people explain the science of it, and then one of your guests who were talking about storage and the coating and stuff, about embrittlement. But anyway, so here's my headlines. Then you can choose one, and we can dive deeper if you want, or we can just stick with headlines. So funding, it depends what you're talking about from a funding point of view, right? So we'll do that one and then we'll come back to it, I think. The HAR1, hydrogen allocation round, HAR1, and HAR2 is in play now. The bids for large organisations to be part of the hydrogen value chain and hydrogen production have gone in. The government's pledging billions and billions of pounds. So at one level, you say there is no problem with funding. It's not quite as simple as that. Nobody gets given a big check and says, go and build this, right? I kind of wish they would. So there is funding available, and I'm not going to get political because you shouldn't talk about religion or politics of parties, and this is a bit of a party, isn't it, Lizzie? But it would appear our new government have really taken a real dramatic stance with some of the policies, and we saw, didn't we? Was it yesterday or the day before, talking about GB energy, and just that you feel like good. Yeah, you feel great. So I think funding is a challenge, but maybe at a micro level rather than a macro level. I think that's probably what I think. So we are someone that would benefit from micro funding, aren't we? We work with the college system across the UK and Wales, well, across England and Wales. We don't work in Scotland yet. We're trying to, but we've got enough on our plate, haven't we? Wales has been a real eye-opener, and they've just had a dramatic change of government, haven't they? Just when you think theirs is settled, the First Minister resigns under a cloud, I think it's fair to say. Unproven, it's not for me to say whether it's true or not, but there was kind of a lot of fingers pointing, weren't there? And so, politics is relying on politicians and politics to run a business is tough, right? And the public sector will know that much more than we will. But we've been given funding in Wales to deliver training. They've really taken the bull by the horns, right? They've taken the bull by the horns and said, we want you to deliver X amount of training to X amount of people in the college system of Wales as a bit of a pilot. And we'd like you then to land and expand and see how far you can take us. Wales has decided that green energy, hydrogen being a part of that, is really important to them. So they put the money where the mouth is and said, come and do it. And I think we start delivering there in September or October. You probably know better than I, Lizzie, right? In Greater Manchester, let's start with that. We've got a group of colleges. I can't remember how many it is now. I know there's a paper waiting for me to review, right? 12 or 15 colleges, one way or another, that says, we really want your syllabus. We really want to deliver it. We really want to be part of this because we've read probably all the papers that we've sent them. We've watched all the videos, probably all the ones that we've created. We've seen your TikTok sensation, that's you, Lizzie, talking about all the different aspects of hydrogen. We have been aggregating the news, right? We've been delivering it in a way that's very consumable to the college system. And now they're like, great, we can see it now. And now we're having more meetings. Lots of colleges don't have any cash, right? And again, it's not for me to talk about, but they don't. And so the difference in having our courses funded versus they have to be paid for privately by the colleges is dramatic, right? And I'm kind of praying. We've been on the journey. Our mayor, Andy Burnham, is a real big advocate in Trafford Park. We're having one of the largest, because I've heard 3 people say theirs is the largest. So there you go, one of the largest hydrogen production plants being built. And everybody knows to do that, you need skilled workers or confident workers or knowledgeable workers or people that will turn up for work, not fearing this hydrogen myth. And the only way you can do that is through education, right? And that education can be deep and meaningful for specific job roles, or it can be light and breezy for everybody so that they understand why this is happening. So we've been doing that, and we've been very grateful to the colleges that have supported us. But when that funding happens, and I'm hoping, Lizzie, by the time this podcast is edited and done, that we're now saying it has happened. We're right on the edge of that right now. When that happens, the challenge for us, the challenge will be choosing the colleges that we want to work with. And I don't mean that in a silly way, just the ones who are going to really embrace it. And then delivering the amount of training that we're going to be asked to train. We will triple in size in the next 12 months. Hydrogen Safe will. And we understand that what we're dealing with here is a very serious, sensible, sometimes dangerous, it can be, knowledge transfer. We recruit great people, and then we have our own really super tricky training course. I know that some of that's happening today, right? And we'll have a new intake. So there will be a challenge about our ability to deliver to the demand. I'm okay with that. It's a better challenge than before. But actually, I think really underneath all of it, of all the challenges that we're going to come to, there is the challenge of making sure that the education process of the people of the areas that are going to have hydrogen in their streets, running a pipe, running to their local factory or production plant, the creation of hydrogen is happening on their doorstep. We want people to embrace it and love it and see the opportunity and be cognizant of the dangers associated. It's just a different danger than your local gas kind of supply, right? That we've all accepted, we all think is fine, is a manageable risk. So I think the biggest challenge is going to be a coordinated approach to educating people that doesn't sound like greenwashing or brainwashing.
And I think that that actually ties in really well with my next question, which is about, do we think the industry has an image problem? And I think for me, obviously, as you said, I've only been in the industry since the start of this year, but I think where the image problem is, it isn't necessarily of those completely on the outside looking in, nor is it from the people directly within the industry. It's actually this almost kind of peripheral part of people that don't realize that they could be in it, or that opportunity is there, is on their doorstep, and why aren't they doing anything about it? That's where the frustration lies. And I think that's kind of echoing what you've just said.
Yeah, well, again, because we're in it together, Lizzie, we were both at the Hydrogen UK conference, weren't we? That was a room full of people, we thought, that were already in the industry and therefore knew all of the answers to all of the questions. And if you did what we did, which was spend a day listening to different guest speakers, some of them were brilliant, right? Real high profile people, even they had mixed messages about the industry, about the challenges. There are so many awarding bodies, governing bodies. We're big fans of Hydrogen UK. That's primarily because Claire Jackson, the CEO, maybe danced with her one night at the Hydrogen UK conference. But they're really nice to us, right? They're kind of nice people. But there are different people who are the government lobbyists, and I'm sure they all do a brilliant job. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying, you get mixed voices, you get mixed messages, you get mixed priorities. It's almost like politics, right? So you have this version of this story, and this is why this is important. So the whole industry has an image problem, but you're right. The image problem that we care about the most is not the dangers, and that's kind of taken for us. It's taken for granted, right? But that might also because we started working in it that we don't see them. It's the image problem of I can never apply for that job because I don't know enough about the subject matter. When actually you probably know enough to do the next bit of learning that will accelerate your career. And that's what's important to me and us. That is our mission. It's not about trying to say that we are the one single voice of truth about hydrogen. It's about how do I take Lizzie Simon, who works in a different industry, and convince her, come and work in the hydrogen sector and you can play a real influential role. I remember, Lizzie, you saying, I don't know anything about it. I remember us having a chat, and you now are you're a hydrogen disciple, right? You're like, wow, what an opportunity. You can now see what I could see. And it's only because I was doing it before. It's not because I'm a visionary. So the challenge, not necessarily with green energy, although we can talk broader, right? The challenge with the hydrogen industry is not enough people know about it yet. That's the real challenge.
Definitely. And I think I completely agree. Like when we're speaking with colleges, they don't realise what is within their region that they could be updating their offerings there, or having CPD days, and it's something that we do see, and it is almost kind of frustrating
And puzzling.
So I guess my question for you, yeah. So I guess my question for you is, if I was to say wave a magic wand and I guess get the people that we work with directly to do the right thing, what would you say that right thing would be?
So we work with local government, we work with colleges, the education system, we work with industry. We're in the supply chain now. We're connecting the supply chain, right? So we're in all of that, and we are positioning ourselves to be a conduit, a conversationalist, an organizer, a bringer of change. I would say in no particular order. Let's get past the funding question and take hydrogen as a mainstream subject that should be taught not only in colleges and universities, but actually let's go backwards, let's go into schools. And I know we do some kind of school education. I think we were with people from that team from Greater Manchester this week, because the real beneficiaries of the hydrogen industry will be the kids who are at the schools now, right? They will be the real beneficiaries of it. The ones who are going to get into the jobs now will be the creators of the hydrogen industry, right? But for it to be mainstream, the kids So we do TikTok, you do TikToks. I think you have a teach me like I'm a 5-year-old or something like that. I think that's the title of it, right? Something like that. So what would I say is, if we are going to invest billions, and we are because we've committed and we've started the process in the hydrogen industry, let's get the people that can to make the learning about the subject and the career opportunities a more talked about mainstream subject. Yeah, do you know what? We'll play our part in it, but it's much bigger than we're ever going to be, right? It's you know, it's a future, and so whereas tech is really mainstream, right? Kids are playing with Minecraft. They have Raspberry Pis donated by the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and that's just seen like, well, of course, why would they not find the kids that are motivated to work in that industry and give them all the information so they know where they can go? We've seen that. I've been a part of that, actually. Let's do that in the hydrogen industry, but let's not wait for 5 years. Let's not let the rest of the world get so far ahead that we miss the opportunity.
I just kind of want to make an additional point that absolutely we need to be going into schools, we need to be encouraging young people to move into the sector, but also just a point about women as well. Again, obviously I've only been in the industry since the beginning of this year, but I've massively seen that kind of difference in female representation, networking events that I've been at. I went to a big event at Manchester Central a couple of weeks ago, and there was a workshop, and there was only like 3 women in the room, me being one of them. And I just, for me, I do definitely see that, and I just think we do need to be doing more from a young age to encourage women to move into kind of STEM careers as well.
I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, right? But I'm going to ask you a question. It's good for you to be on the other end of the questioning, Lizzie. Why do you think that is? And is there an opportunity to change some of the labels, even the job titles? Do you think that would have an effect?
Definitely. I mean, there's kind of 2 parts there. So I think the first part is, I think there is an expectation sometimes that there aren't necessarily careers, going through families and things that people then therefore don't think that it's right for them, but which needs to be broken down. But I definitely think there is something in job titles. At my last job, so this was when I was kind of more involved in training, and we would have the different job titles of coach and trainer, and it actually attracted more males depending on the title. And it was a really interesting observation, but it absolutely did, that coaches were attracting more female and trainers were attracting more male. And it's just little things like that you wouldn't realise until you've done it. So absolutely, I think there's a lot of work that's needed, and yeah, I think we can be at the head of it.
The reason I asked it was a loaded question because I've been thinking about it too, right? Yasmin Ali, who was your first guest, who has a really powerful story as a female engineer. If you've not read her book, I mean, she is a outspoken for all the right reasons lady in engineering, kind of saying, do you know what? It doesn't need to be as male dominated as it is, right? You hear the word engineer, you instantly think of big heavy spanners and oil all over your face, don't you, right? I just think it's a generational thing. So in the hydrogen industry, whilst it's so new, one of the things that I'm going to talk to Claire Jackson about is, why don't we reinvent job titles, right? If the industry is brand new, why don't we reinvent them? Why don't we sit in a room and go through every single job title that we can think of? And if we're going to prefix it with the word hydrogen, why don't we suffix it, right, with a different word? So let's not call it a hydrogen engineer. Let's call it a hydrogen consultant. Whatever it might be, right? I just think we have an opportunity, don't we, to not only change a narrative around green energy and all of those things. We have an opportunity to go and have a look at diversity. And it's embarrassing, isn't it? We talk about diversity, and diversity is still in this sector male, female, and there are plenty of other ways to have a look at what diversity is. But let's go and try and fix that one first. Let's not just going to try and eat all the elephant in one go.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be doing things a little bit differently, obviously, because it's the final episode of season 1. So usually we would do facts and fiction, and I would say the statement, and then the guest would say if they think that it's true or false. But this episode, Andy is going to say a statement to me, and I'm going to say if I think that it's fact or fiction, and then Andy, you're going to teach something to me, and then hopefully our listeners as well. So over to you.
Okay, so thinking about the hydrogen allocation round one, dead nerdy, because loads of people have never heard of it. Loads of people will now go and have a look. I think it was December the 14th, if you want to get into it, when it was announced. There was a number of projects that were awarded funding, right? So I'm not going to ask you how many, right? I'm going to ask you how many of the projects, or what percentage of the projects, are now commissioned, because it's been a while. So I know it's not a fact or fiction. I just want you to kind of have a thought, and how many will never make it, because there is some news recently about it that you might not have noticed.
No, this is a great one. So I thought you were going to ask me how many projects, because I would have got that, because it's 11 projects, I'm pretty sure. What percentage have been commissioned? I don't know. 20%?
So I think from the last time I read, it's 2, maybe 3. So you can have 20%, right? But I have read there's 2, maybe 3 that will never start, that have decided, even though they went through that process of bidding, that they were allocated funding, the final investment decisions have come up with we're not going to do this.
So what happens to that funding now then? Does that carry over to the next year, or is that gone, or what happens?
I don't know the answer. We should go and find out. I suspect that the round says we will invest up to X in projects. So what you are right, there is 11. We'll invest X amount, and then you apply somewhere between these parameters for the money that you want, the money that you are asking for. And then it's up to you then to get started. So Carlton Power in Trafford Park is one. No one's dug a hole in the ground yet, right? It doesn't mean that they won't. It's just the lag. December the 14th, it's watershed day. Hooray, everything's starting. No, everything is starting to start. And I just presumed, as anybody else would, that the 11 projects that were awarded, well, it's December the 14th. Presumably they're going to have Christmas off, and then they kick off on January the 5th. That whole journey is years. And I think that's been the eye-opener for me in the industry, which is we were really super early. I'm delighted that we were. It's given us an opportunity to do things that we never perhaps thought we would do, which is build and work with organisations to build training courses. We might not have had that luxury, and with hindsight, it might have been the perfect thing. But people who are connected to the hydrogen value chain, the supply chain, who have been waiting for these things to happen, building their business ready and in anticipation, are still waiting. So there's many businesses not going to start or have failed before we've had one bit of production come for us. And I thought that's a story at another time we should tell.
Yeah, well, I think as well, just something to factor in, because obviously it is frustrating that there has been this huge delay, but I do think that the changing government has definitely impacted that. And it's not all kind of, it's going to be like this the whole time. I just think it's happened at a really difficult time that the government has been changing. It's probably made people feel a bit more nervous about investing, and kind of just stirred up a lot of kind of challenges and delays, I guess.
Well, so Keir Starmer could have come out, couldn't he? The Labour government could have come out and said, we're scrapping all of that. I mean, they couldn't have done, but they could have. Theoretically, they could have, right? That our focus is going to be in other areas. And so if you are going to take a massive investment decision to build and grow and develop a brand new infrastructure, you probably want to make sure that the incoming government say, no, we're going to back this. So yeah, I think that created a 2-3 month delay, maybe a bit longer, I don't know.
Well, I think as well, just following on from what you were saying, like when it was the campaign as well with Labour, it wasn't like there was like a load of commitment, like we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It was a lot more kind of narrative. So it did create that increased level of what is going to happen. So it is good to see that, as soon as they've come in, there has been a lot of things been done, statements been released, policies come out and whatnot, with the focus around energy. So fingers crossed it carries on that way, I guess. So for the final episode of season 1, once again, we're going to do things a little bit differently. So typically, this is the section where we'll do the connecting the supply, where Andy will answer a question from a previous guest anonymously, and then leave one for the next. But for this episode, I'm actually going to ask Andy a question. So the question that I've got for you, Andy, is our motto, connecting the supply. What does that mean to you and us as a business?
So it's not marketing genius. I put that on my LinkedIn the other day, didn't I? Although it does feel like marketing genius. It means that when we work with colleges, actually, you have experienced it, Lizzie, firsthand. They don't know who the customers might be. They don't know who are the businesses that are going to benefit from the training. So they feel like they want to do it, but they don't know who's going to benefit from it. And conversely, the businesses who now know they're going to need a skilled workforce, new or incumbent, right? They're going to need some new skills and training awareness. They don't know where to go to get it. So there is a model that we could have done, which is a private training provider, which we are, saying we'll open up our own campus and you send your employees or future employees to us and we'll train them, right? We could have done that. And actually that's a model I've used before. What we decided to do was say, no, we'll work really closely with the education system and we will pick the colleges who are most likely to attract the businesses, i.e. they're somewhere geographically connected to hydrogen projects or in easy commute of, people are willing to relocate, aren't they, for a job these days. It's much less of a thing, but, let's just be sensible to start with. So we connect the supply by saying we'll bring businesses to colleges and the education system. We'll bring the education system to businesses. But that's only two parts of it, right? The other bit is we'll take people on a journey where they want to learn more, where they are seeing information in a nice consumable format that makes sense. Hopefully this video blog, the vlog, whatever it is, the TikToks, the stuff that we do on social media, right? Hopefully that creates a narrative and an interest. So we go to the people and say, with a genuine hand on our heart, we want you to learn this because it will give you a great opportunity, a career opportunity. College, we want you to embrace this because businesses in the next 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 months are going to need a place to call home for their future and incumbent workforce. And that connecting all of that, that's what connecting the supply is. It doesn't mean sticking a big tube on a hydrogen outlet and say, you can now start using hydrogen, although it probably could do that as well.
Okay, so thank you for that. So I guess as a little bit of a follow-up, obviously for our season 2 is going to be coming out, we want to be focusing on jobs and skills. And I think that really echoes what you've just said. But what's your insight on what we should really kind of be focusing on who we have in and what questions we ask them?
So I think you said earlier at the beginning of this, you've seen a new report with a new number of jobs being created. That's a national number, right? So I think we should be focusing on drilling down into the areas that we are working with or we are working in, right? Make them a bit more localized because I think that's going to be important and tangible for people. So I think we should definitely do that and bring people in who either want to get a job in the hydrogen industry but don't know where to start. I think that would be really interesting, right? Someone saying, well, how do I get involved? I think that would be good. I think employers who know they need some people but they don't know what yet or who yet, and understanding how their process works. I think that'd be really helpful and interesting for people to understand. And I think the colleges who, if I dare say, are a bit further ahead than others, who said, no, we want to lead the charge here, right? I think without them giving their trade secrets away, I think that would be really interesting. And if we could get a politician or two, right? Let's see how high we can aim. So we get a politician or two, local or central. I mean, that's a real challenge. And why would they not want to come on? Why would Sir Keir Starmer not want to give you 15 minutes of his day, Lizzie? Why would he not?
Well, we've got some exciting plans already, so it's good to kind of have your feedback on that. But yeah, so that's brought us to the end of the episode, Andy. I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and it's been brilliant.
Well, I have, and thank you for asking me some good questions, and then not knowing that I'm going to ask you them back, and you being interviewed on your own podcast. I thought that was quite a nice quirk.
Yeah, you threw me off there. Thank you so much for listening to The Challenge with Green Energy, brought to you by Hydrogen Safe. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and leave a review. Every time you do, it helps us to promote our podcast and increases the chances of others finding the show too. For further details on Hydrogen Safe and how we are connecting the supply between businesses, individuals, and educators through our specialist hydrogen safety training, then head over to hydrogensafe.org and subscribe to our newsletter. See you next time.